We're doing a couple songs, these things with that. And then some of our songs.
Okay, anytime ready.
All right, I'm going to call the meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge. See if I can actually stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Okay, first up is a discussion about future planning for the Irvington Theater with the Theater Commission. Whoever's here from the Theater Commission is welcome to come on up. And while you're coming up, that may be the description on this, but I think we're also trying to find the best. Please come up. That way you're on mic, just for people at home.
Sure.
Find the best description for the future theater manager, which I think is, we're coming at it perhaps a different way, but that is what we're trying to do. So the floor is yours if you'd like to talk about your vision.
Thank you. Hello. I think most of you know me, but I'm Jessica Aronoa. I am one of the co-chairs of the Irvington Theater Commission, along with my friend, Sean Leitman, right here. And we want to first of all thank you. We're really, really excited to have this opportunity. We're thankful for your time. And we want to also thank you for supporting our programming. So just quickly, before we jump into the nitty-gritty, which I know are the emergencies, I would like to state on the record why I believe so many of us are putting so much of our effort and talent into transforming our theater, and why we have so many crazy talented people, some of whom are here tonight, bringing their talent, their effort, and their contacts to help build this. And I think it's because of the times we're living in. You know, I believe what we did this past year and what we are building here with this community of Irvington is the antidote that a lot of people are seeking. In a time of great division and isolation, we have been building and creating connectivity and community. For example, our Irv Heart LA event, which featured our beloved local bands, as well as Judy Gold, was able to raise $17,000 for wildlife relief. At a time when they're telling us no one can talk to each other anymore, we're facilitating amazing conversations about flashpoint figures like Sam Altman. And we're expanding access to the arts in a time of massive contraction. Now, I can tell you I've been doing this as a professional actress this is being recorded, so we're not going to put on record how many years, but I've never lived through a time like this. You know, all across the country, arts funding is being slashed. Fewer and fewer artists are able to make their work. And as a result, fewer and fewer audiences have access to a true array of the arts. And at the same time, though we live so close to the greatest theater in the world, no one can afford it anymore. You know, it's become so prohibitively expensive that the truth is, we're not going to be able to take our kids to more than a handful of things in their developmental years. And if we're honest, it's going to be Wicked. And I love Wicked, but Wicked is not enough. And then somehow right here in Irvington, we are providing this access. We had a sold out film festival. We had a really rare opportunity to have an A-list actress and now director, Patricia Arquette. And we did something I'm really proud of. We used the funding for that. And we created an arts incubator over the summer, giving opportunities to theater artists who haven't been able to have them. And we officially became a community that not only comes together to experience great art, but also helps to create it. So that is what we're asking for, your help to continue this path, to grow this work. And we really want to transform the Irvington Theater from a rented auditorium, which is the current model that we're using, to a proper performing arts center. And we really want to become the cultural heart of the River Towns.
I'm Shauna Leitman. We feel strongly that our theater has been underutilized for too long. We have too few rentals, and many of those are kids' theater productions, which benefit families from other towns. We don't have enough programming that speaks to our residents, and we believe that the Irvington Theater has so much potential to be a community builder, to be a place to gather, to host classes for students, to showcase local artists, to introduce our kids to new shows, new perspectives. We genuinely also believe that this is what this community wants. Irvington has changed a lot in the last few years post-COVID. We have a new influx of people, and a lot of those people, don't want to go to the city for entertainment. They want to stay here. They want to invest in their community. Since we reopened, we've had people come from out of their shells, out of their homes, telling us how happy they are to be at the theater, how happy they are to participate, and they want to help. financially, creatively, practically.
There's this amazing documentary that's on Netflix right now, maybe the theater sometime, called Join or Die. It was actually the inspiration for me to join the theater. And basically it outlines why participation in community is the bedrock of democracy. And we really believe that's the opportunity in front of us right now.
I think we also want to assure all of you that we are not demanding any like huge, significant, immediate overhaul. We're not asking for a production budget. Our goal is likely aligned with yours. We want to make our town theater the best it can be with the resources available to us. And to that point, we want to take this moment to step back and assess what's working and what's not working.
You know, Noah Kornman, who's the head of the Friends of the Irvington Theater, and he really would have loved to be here tonight, but he's with his son at his open house, has this metaphor, which I just love, where he's like, we've got this great, gorgeous car, and it's charming, and everybody wants to ride in it, but it was built to just go around Irvington. But now we want to take the car across country. And everybody's saying, you can't take the car across country. And we're like, why? Nobody knows. So we need this opportunity. We got to get under the hood. We got to check, is it the engine? Is it, I'm not going to be good with car metaphors, but you get where I'm going with this.
And there's a lot to look at, a lot to analyze. We want to sit with Katie and really look at the budgets. We want to collaborate more with the rec center, with the schools, the library. We think we can share. We've heard that Dobbs and Sleepy Hollow are opening their own theaters. And we feel like we already have this great theater. We want it to be the best. And things are changing. We now have a summer season. We have the stage in Madison Park opening, which will definitely need the theater's help because it has very limited storage.
To recreating an operating model that no longer works. And we have received that feedback from Greg himself, from Ryan, who's our amazing long-term tech director, from Lori Chalk, who was a previous theater commissioner, and the creator of As If, including our own commission, is saying the model we have isn't working.
And some of this feedback, including something that Ryan said, is that we might need two positions. We might need a production manager and an operations manager instead of just one general manager. We realize that the most pressing issue tonight is filling Greg's role. We actually wrote a detailed job description, which we have here and we can send to you. And we are more than willing to be part of that process. What we are thinking might work best is to hire an interim to use the remaining, Greg's remaining salary, to hire someone who can jump in right now, steady the ship, handle operations until we find the right person to fill that role. And for that interim, we feel like we need somebody that has creativity, leadership, flexibility, the ability to sort of foster relationships. We're really looking for somebody that has relationships and connections within the theater world, the small regional theater world, someone that can help program and fundraise for a theater like ours, of our scale. Somebody like Greg who can, roll with the punches and be like this dynamic face of our theater. And we actually do have some names of people that we think could fill that role, which we're happy to give to you. That position, I think, ends in June, and that sort of overlap, that time will give us the opportunity to find the replacement that we think will really fit that job, and also give us the proper scaffolding to build that sustainable long-term model.
Yes, and just to end, I want to just take one quick second and speak very candidly from the heart and tell you that I really believe that the stars are aligning in this crazy way for us right now, and we are not going to get another opportunity like this. I mean, the major award-winning professionals who are behind us, who are giving us their time, their talent, their contact books. We have a staff who I can promise you loves this place, who has put in years and years of their time. We have a community that is hungry, that wants to be part of something, that wants to build something we're proud of. And we have this very strange moment where people are actually seeking experiences outside of New York City. We don't have a community center here. And a proper performing arts center could really be that community center. It could serve as a multiplier for our town's businesses. It can provide cultural value, and it can bring people out of their houses and also bring people to our town. I have always believed that when the arts constrict, so does the human spirit. And we have a very important opportunity right now to keep that spirit alive, for ourselves, for our community, and I think most importantly for our kids. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, I guess I'm speaking for myself, although I'll be surprised if anybody else here disagrees. I do believe that you are right, that we should broaden the theater offerings and you described it in detail, but I just, question is how you get there. It will surprise you to know that about 20 years ago, I self-produced an event at that theater, doing everything from advertising to literally making the tickets. So it's my father who came to speak, who happens to be a best-selling author. But I know from that experience, I know just how difficult it is to self-produce something. So putting aside the money for a minute, I don't know that it's fair for us to rely on volunteers because population changes, people come and go, their interest waxes and wanes. I'm backing into, again, the roles of the, if it's one or it's two, people who are working to build this. It's a very different set of skills to self-produce than it is to rent. And now to just address the money for a moment. If you're saying, in effect, rent what you can, but there's no minimum rental requirement, we could probably swing that if I'm remembering correctly. Maybe it's $90,000 in rent that was expected. But you're also now saying add 2 salaries. Again, we might be able, that's going to be a, you know, a budget and a board decision and so on. But I'm not against that. But knowing the difficulty, again, I'm looking at my own personal experience, and maybe it's not fair to do that. Knowing the difficulty of self-producing, I'm not entirely convinced that this can be done or should be done for the money. In other words, we have to make a decision that says we're going to pour money into the theater because it becomes a cultural center, not because we think we can even come close to break even or even close to what the budget is now.
I mean, I think all of that is fair. Again, that's why we're asking for time. I think it is important to remember, again, theaters are, as you're pointing out, historically never moneymakers, but they are always historically multipliers. So I do think that the value that having an active, thriving center is going to bring to our businesses. I know Mima has been thrilled. You know, I know the other businesses have been thrilled. All that traffic coming into our town, real estate values going up. I do think that that will, you know, be bringing things into our town. And I think that is why finding this head is so important, because you're speaking of self-producing, but if you have a producer as the head, it's not self-produced. You're bringing in ideas, which are then produced within the theater that has structure and staff that can just make that happen. It's not like we'd have, you know, if you came to us now, for example, and said, I would like to do my father's book, we'd be like, great, we have a book committee. Just give us all the details. What time's your dad showing up? Yeah, very different.
I'm going to borrow, what was your idea? And you can amplify it from a prior conversation we had, not to worry. And that is the person you've described who's working as the manager is not actually producing, but finding others who will do the production, and it's a revenue share or it's some other type of a deal like that. Just by way of example of ways to potentially work together. The Terrytown Music Hall reached out to us, sent us a letter that said, and I'm not suggesting they were saying, hey, our acts will be your acts. It was more, how could we work together on booking or some other aspect of this? And we haven't responded to say that we're interested and we'll come back to you.
There was an instance where we accepted, I think it was an act that was maybe too small for the Terrytown this past year.
Yeah.
Too small for the Terrytown Music Hall. And we said, you know, we would take that. Like we could take some of their overruns, some of their, you know, some of the acts that they can't accommodate.
Well, that you also point out that, I mean, that's sort of another inherent limitation of our theater. It's only got whatever it is, 400 or so seats. You have a limit on what you can do and what you can achieve economically. You know, for better or
Yeah, on
worse.
the other hand, 400 seats is a lot of seats
And
for regional theaters.
In fact, I just had someone reach out to me from another film festival saying their theaters, they can't do anything in their theater because it's 1,000 seats and they're stuck.
Yeah.
You know, there is something nice about the size that 100 people.
Yeah, of course.
I think I look at this a little bit differently. I think this is a question of what we want the theater to be, right? And I think I wasn't really aware that we sort of had this rental law. I just never had paid attention to that. And I do think we have to think about what we want this to be, right? And so that's how I look at it. I think obviously we have to look at the economics and how that works and like how we might get there. But it seems to me like this is a very good opportunity to move from a model that is not, is not really serving the purpose that a theater should be serving. Like, if you said to me, do you want a rental auditorium in your town? I don't know that I'd be like, yay, rental auditorium, right?
You could use the school to do
Yeah,
that.
right. So I think we have this opportunity. We spent a lot of money on that theater. And I think, this is a good opportunity to use it. I think sometimes you have to spend, we have to, right, we put resources where our priorities are. And I think if, this is an exciting opportunity to add something to our community. And I think, the financial piece we can work out, right? We're not gonna do this, but I do think this is an exciting opportunity. I think we should sort of keep moving forward. And I think this interim thing that you guys, the interim person, I think is important because it'll give us some time, give you guys some time, sort of like proof of concept to see how that works. And we're not stuck long term, right? And it's also hard because right now, as you develop this model, it's going to be hard to design a job, right? For something that is maybe a moving target. We're kind of trying to work out what it's going to be. And maybe this is a good way to sort of like in between kind of get there, which I sort of like, and gives you guys sort of the flexibility to kind of like, it doesn't have to be perfect the first time around, right? To try things and see how they work. But I think it's really great. We do need more, I think, community-centered activities. We don't have a community, right? We don't have, so I do think that we need to round out what we are as a community. And, this is, I think, super exciting.
Since we have a couple, maybe 3 experts, if I count Mary Ann behind, this is for you guys. I assume we can do an interim, I'm asking, an interim employee if we advertise it as such.
Can you do it as a consultant, maybe?
So, because I don't want to go down a road and find out I can't, that's not even possible.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, we need some time to research it,
Okay,
just because it's civil service and all that.
yeah,
Right.
that's.
So that's why, so one thing I wanted to say was, obviously, I 1000% agree with what you said about this as an opportunity, and I agree with Arlene that, I don't think we need a rental hall, bringing in, and being primarily children's theater. When I did a focus group for the theater with some new residents back in 2019, I got answers like, we have a theater, but then I also got answers like, isn't it a kids theater? And I'm like, well, no, actually, there are some clients that are kids theaters, but we're not a kids theater. But here's what I think, and why I think maybe the idea of an interim, I'd like to maybe tweak a little bit and see what you guys think, which is, I think we all agree on the concept, right? This idea that there's gonna have to be some way that we can have more events that reflect what the community wants and that also appeal beyond our community to make it financially viable. Right? But at the same time, I think the village is not in a position to be a production that can risk hundreds of thousands of dollars a year if things don't go the way it's supposed to go. So the question is, how do you get to this model that we all want to go to? I don't think there's anyone who disagrees with that. What is the route to do that? What I was thinking was, it seems to me that like an interim manager is going to be somewhat problematic because, as you guys know, you book out so far in advance that there are people coming in now, I'm sure, looking to book beyond June, right? Like, in other words.
I'm actually not entirely sure that's true. Maybe a little bit,
Yeah.
but nothing that couldn't be handled,
Well, I guess what I'm saying is I think the most important thing is the profile of the person that I would want to hear from and pay money for is a consultant who can give us very concrete answers as to how we approach it's almost like a riddle. We want to be here.
Right.
We don't want to do this. So how do we get here without doing this?
Yeah, I think that's an idea that Noah suggested as well. This might be a good time to hire consulting or an expert, someone to come in and give us some advice about how we get from A to B.
Exactly, because there are so many different, and I'm not saying it has to be or, it can be and, but there are so many different ways. Like, for example, like when you partner with bigger institutions who see us at like, I'm just making this up off the top of my head, like what if the Comedy Cellar wanted a Comedy Cellar Hudson Valley, and, you know, once a month they send their comics up or whatever, or once a week, who knows what they'd be interested in, or if there's a theater company in Manhattan that wants to do a Hudson Valley version at certain times of year, whether it's the summer or whatever. These kind of models could be ways that we can get the programming we want without having to be the producer putting up the money, that if it completely flops.
And
then we're out
those
the money.
theaters might be in New Jersey or upstate too.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm saying that's one model, right? And then there's other ways that you can approach it also, where you can bring people in through partners who do booking, like, you know, Carter used to do, you know, years ago in the theater and everything. And I think that like I'm not sure, and this isn't a slide on any of us, that like any of us are exactly perfectly suited to come up with that plan with all those different pieces that are in place, because it's not an and or an or. It's like, we could do this, or we could do this, or we could do this. You know, you guys have mentioned grant funding and everything. That's yet, and I think that there's a model for you guys to pursue going forward. And then we can bring in a theater manager who can execute on that plan.
Yeah, I think that's a
I
great
think it's a
idea.
great idea.
So to get, actually, I should, does anybody else have anything to add at this point?
Just I produced a million things.
Yeah, no. So
And
I wasn't gonna volunteer.
No, and I
to
was
go
saying,
or-
no, but I was saying was that you're essentially right. And I think when we were very active in producing, when Lori was the chair, she was always very clear that like, this is not a sustainable model, but rather this is proof of concept. If we can show the community what can be there, then we can build on top
Right,
of
we
that.
need a sustainable model.
Right.
And I don't know that I think that a consultant is a great idea, and I think we should definitely do that if we can. I don't know that that should replace the interim.
Understood. But it changes what we're looking for in the interim, I think.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying? Like if it's really someone just to fly the ship and everything, to, you know, to start making some of those fundraising that we talked about, I agree. It also wouldn't hurt if the kind of people, the people you're suggesting, are they also people that could be candidates for the long-term position?
Yeah.
Because I think that would be important too.
Yeah.
That'd be ideal, right, to have somebody we could try out.
Right, but we don't want to put the pressure on it in that way, but I certainly want to have the option,
It's an
right?
option.
Because I don't want to start with the idea like, well, you're only until June, because
Exactly.
people, when they come in for specific periods and know they're not staying, there's a kind of, I'm thinking about an interim president we once had at Iona, and some of the things he did, I was like, wow, and you know you're not staying, you're not afraid to say certain things, you know?
Sometimes that, though.
I know, it's true, yeah, but yeah, I think it would be better to have somebody who's invested, who's like thinking, I could build something here and things go
Yeah.
right.
Just to jump in, we had spoken about this before, and I very much like your model. I think there's time for change. I think I agree with you that the concept is wonderful. I just conversation about having these models of like, what's the way to bring in this without it being like this much. So for me, that would be the one pause I would have. Otherwise, I think it's a very compelling.
I mean, I think the Comedy Cellar idea is brilliant. You know, absolutely.
It could be repeated in a bunch of different.
Right, and that was meant to be like one example. I mean, you think about what's in Manhattan, there's tens of hundreds of organizations that we could. approach
And
this.
the idea of sharing resources with
Yeah.
other theaters is like something we've never really done, and it makes total sense.
So how do we take those ideas and turn it into something that those guys can actually, for the moment, or one of them eventually, can use to craft the job description? Because I'm hearing a couple of things, as I suspect you folks are. Perhaps you want to give us the job description you have. You don't have to do it immediately.
Yeah, we
You can
have it, and
email
we
it
can
to us.
email it to you, yeah.
And if you have some suggestions, that's fine. And we need to look at it and decide, okay, do we chase this roll down while we look at a consultant, or should we bring a consultant in if that's where we want to go? Now, let the person do their work for 3 months. And if we're, then Ryan, I'm looking past you. That's, we have to figure out, you know, your situation. And I know you're doing yeoman's work, so I want to thank you for that.
Absolutely.
But you know, do we let that analysis go on first, and then make the, you know, pull the trigger on?
I think Shauna's point was that the two tracks have to move together.
Yeah.
Well, except what if the consultant says, that's not the person, you want something different?
That's why they're in.
Well, they haven't told me I can do that.
Well, we gotta figure something.
Yeah, no, I just, okay,
I mean, and
all
I
right.
think, what's important with that I've been hearing is that we all sort of agree.
Yeah.
That this is the time for change, and I think it is really worth kind of moving forward on this idea. I think there are multiple things to be doing, tracks to move forward, but, you know, the track that we don't want to stay on is the auditorium.
Yeah.
Right? So I think that's a big, you
Sure.
know, that's really important. Like, I think it's something I had never thought about before, but, you know, clearly, you know, we have a really good committee and lots of people. The right time, when you have the right people, it's a really good opportunity to kind of like move this forward. So I think we seem to be in agreement. So
And I
that's
think
good.
we have proof that people will come to downtown Irvington. I mean, we had successful Bulldog Days
Yeah.
and those are, you know, we have some idea. I don't think we know like how much revenue or how much it ties into our businesses, but we know that people are willing to be in the area. And we also know that like we're starting to be more known as an arts community with projects. So.
And I think it's important that we need to draw beyond Irvington for this
Yes.
model to work. I mean,
Yes.
I think that's the first thing. I think that's one of the things that many people involved with the theater through the years have been reluctant to embrace. And I think that's something we have to say out loud, that people have been afraid to say out loud. For this
For
model
the
to work.
restaurants, why would
That's what I'm saying.
It's
Yeah.
okay, we're welcoming an
You know.
inclusive community.
I mean,
So-
you know, if I drive
Yes.
to Mamaroneck to go to the Emlyn, why wouldn't someone in Mamaroneck drive to Irvington to go to the
Yeah,
Irvington?
Right, and I think they will.
Because ours is nicer, but. so- It is, it's factual, I mean, it's a factual statement.
My question is too, how does this tie in with Friends, the Irvington Theater? Like, what's,
Yes, Noah is, again, sorry, he can't be here, but Noah's like ready. So once we know what we need, he is more than willing to bring in, you know, the friends. He loves this, to come in and what could we raise money for? You know, if a consultant were to say, okay, great, but it's gonna take X amount of money, Noah's fully prepared to jump in and say, okay, let's raise X amount of money.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think it's been a huge missed opportunity
Yes.
for the theater in general, not to be, you know, using this group to raise money, to apply for grants, to, you know, there's so many, I think, resources out there that we just haven't reached out for.
and again, when you have a more active theater, it's easier to get people
Yeah.
excited.
And a consultant could help the friends also, because remember,
Absolutely.
as far as the process that went through in 2019,
Right.
looking at maybe how to remodel the theater and then close it, and then now with having the HVAC system, it changes everything. Consultant can look at what's been discussed and say, that's a good idea, that's a bad idea, this will help, this will not help. It's another thing I think they could do.
And also to really think about the Matheson stage is
That
potentially
too, yeah.
part of this with the rec center, you know, I really think it's gonna need the collaboration, and I think again, it'd be a missed opportunity. I mean, how cool to have a great summer stage, and that's definitely something that, you know, people travel for.
So I guess next steps are you send us what you got. Let us look at it. And we'll talk, and, you know, it may come up at a future meeting, which is not that far away. But, I think I don't want to let this sit for too long because you're right, there's an opportunity and let's see what we can do.
Yeah, we're happy to come back next month
Yeah.
and talk more about it.
So much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so
Appreciate
much.
it. Oh, and I should mention, I don't know if these folks were prompted by you, but regardless, we got at least 3 letters that will, you know, supporting your position that'll come up on, I guess, the September 15th agenda. So
2
we'll.
more came in after.
Yeah.
Oh,
we
all
were
right, I
putting
didn't
in
see
two,
those.
so-
Okay, so you know about that already. That's okay. It's okay. Building consensus is good.
Thank you guys.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Village of Irvington Facilities Plan. Did Arthur decide he can do it or we don't know? All right, if he's not there, he's not there.
We just like that, and I think- He wants to- Yeah. So, okay.
So, I guess just to set the stage. Sure. Although I think it was in my mayor's letter, but we interviewed 4 potential planners. They gave us their proposals. We whittled it, we being the facilities planning committee and the board whittled it down. We met with the leading contender, we being, I guess I'll call it the steering committee, which is you, the 2 co-chairs of the facilities planning committee, Marlene and I guess Larry. I don't think I'm missing anything. And so now we are here to have you sort of take us through the leading candidate, which is Buyer, Blinder Bell, what they are proposing to do. Right. And I don't want to drive you in a particular direction, but what I'm interested in hearing is what they're proposing to do, why some of these aspects like PR and public interaction. And then we should talk about both price and next steps.
Okay, that sounds good. So these materials were distributed to the board in advance. So what I understand the intent is to provide an overview of the process, the highlights of the proposal, answer any questions, provide clarifications that the board may need to be able to move to the next step and authorize funds. So as Mayor Siegel recapped, we invited 4 firms to submit proposals based on RFP that we developed with the town, with the village. We interviewed 3. Buyer Blinder Bell was independently evaluated the highest from all of the selection committee members, selected unanimously as the firm to proceed with towards contract negotiations. Just a couple notes on them that I have from our discussions. They bring strong leadership with decades of experience in community planning, but it's paired with the unique kind of expertise that we need for this project, which is defining our needs at a very detailed level, programmatic space needs, that is, planning paired with architectural expertise and community engagement, and last but not least, guiding an electorate towards making very big decisions. So we thought that their experience in their presentation demonstrated all of that. We thought that they had a very strong understanding of the scope and our unique challenges. They had very relevant experience from similar sized historic downtown plans, Somerville and Waterville, are 2 to mention. They also have experience designing municipal buildings as architects of those buildings in historic settings, including firehouse and historic. So they check all of those boxes. So after the selection committee, steering committee, as it will be known, met with Buyer Blinder Bell to answer any questions they may have before they prepared a draft scope and fee outline. They provided that to us, and we provided comments back based around focusing the study and trying to economize it even further. What that meant was we reduced the overall number of sites that are looked at. You can remember the big spreadsheet that the committee started with. Well, they narrowed that down a little bit. We narrowed it down even further in this final draft. We also reduced the number of sites that will receive a higher level of design testing. So not just the site planning, but the architectural test fits. I can talk about the distinction between those. We streamlined the meeting schedule for efficiency. And we also defined some ways that the committee can provide some enhanced support as boots on the ground to lessen the load for the consultant. So all those revisions are in this overall budget as proposed in this document. They were able to do all of that without changing the final deliverables. We're still getting what we asked for, and we still have the overall project duration same. So I think that they're really smart about how they massage to be able to. And just a final note, they've been extremely responsive, positive, collaborative in working with us through all this, and I think it's just a great sign for work partnership. So the highlights, maybe the schedule would be a good one. I think it's on 14. The overall process is 9 months. Yeah. 9 months. We'll start later than what this graphic shows, but the work is split up into basically 3 phases. There's an initial data gathering and needs assessment phase. That's where they look at all of the municipal facilities and determine what the current space needs are, but also think about what we may need in the future. and develop a kind of order of a program for those. Similar to what we did with the firehouse and the bond referendum exercises, but it will be expanded to all the other facilities. Following that, there'll be a series of site feasibility testing that is in two steps. The first step is what they are referring to as planning site tests. So they take the program, the overall size of what you need for one of the departments, and locate it on a site in the village to determine if it could fit. They'll have engineers weigh in on those, but they're very high level, two-dimensional test fits. The second step in the process is in taking, and they propose doing that for 12 sites in the village. If we go back to the table,
All of those sites.
yeah, the table of sites. So all of the way to interpret this, all of the cells on here that have a P on them are the ones that would receive the planning level study. Does the program fit? Then there's an enhanced level of study, which they're referring to as architectural concept testing. So, and that has been reduced down to 4 sites and focused on emergency services. And you can see those listed here. There is flexibility to change the location of the sites that are tested, but the number would be fixed in the current code as it relates to the fee. Could always amend the fee, but the numbers would stay the same. And if the process evolves and we want to look at different sites, that flexibility. After the site feasibility is conducted and the detailed test fits are conducted, then all of the work would be summarized in a series of deliverables for the town to use through implementation. We can go into more detail on what that is. The other stream of work that is consistent from the beginning to the end is their engagement. And you can see community engagement on the bottom of this schedule. There are 3 large community events proposed, plus 1 kickoff. The kickoff will probably be organized and facilitated by the facilities planning committee and be a kind of handoff to the consultant team. So we'll take more of it. And the way that they organize the fee, I think, is very intelligent as well. If we could go to that.
Later on, right?
It's later on, it's probably one of the last slides. Yeah, so remember, there are 2 steps to the feasibility testing. The 314 subtotal includes all the planning level testing, the P's, the 12 sites, and then the 4 sites that are earmarked for the enhanced testing add up to 130,000. And the fine print there under estimated fee says that that'll be authorized at the after the site feasibility testing concludes to confirm that it is 4 sites that we want to proceed with. It could be less, and then that number would come down. It could be more if we feel like we need more, and the number would go up. But I think it was smart to have a kind of break point in here where we can take a step back and say, how many of these firehouse or emergency services sites do we really want to evaluate? Because you can see 4 out of 130,000, it's not insignificant. I'm sure you have lots of questions.
I have a couple.
Yes.
You do this professionally.
Yeah.
In fact, you're doing not quite like this, but something from my own hometown of Woodbridge, Connecticut. In your professional opinion, does this proposal capture what we need and is the price reasonable? I'm not asking you to make the decision for us. I'm asking you to give me your candid opinion. If you feel you can do it, if you feel this would be a problem for you, just say so.
I think the scope in the way that it's matured through this process is, it really does meet our needs. I think it's focused on the highest priority, which has been what we've heard from the board from the very beginning. Can we narrow this? Can we focus it on what we need now? But put it in the context of a larger vision. So I think we're getting both guidance as a community on what we need to do from the onset, and with the confidence that it's set within a greater framework or plan. I also think it's a great time to be doing that, as the TOD study is set to launch. I'm not sure, but doing both of these plans, I think, are very timely. Been a long time since the comp plan. So I think the scope. I think the scope really hits the mark. And I think the fee mirrors the right level of effort. I think the way that they have constructed their team is lean and focused on what we saw different teams with more specialty consultants in this. Our Bidabel is unique in that they have many of the expertise that we've asked for in-house. So their space planning expert comes from Boston, but is part of their firm. So I think we have a very efficient approach and a streamlined team that is reflected in the fee.
Would it be reasonable, this is getting into a little more detail, but they have an hourly fee chart elsewhere, and it says it's subject to annual review. Since this is an 8-month project, would you think it's reasonable for us to say those are locked in as long as we're doing, if this project doesn't take more than 8 months or 9 months?
I think correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the billing would be against the total contract figure.
But
The
they're
hourly
gonna
rate
eat it
is
up.
only
This isn't, well, maybe it is. We'll see how the contract is drafted. Are you saying that they cannot go over 314, 375? I think they eat it up a lot faster if their hourly rate is higher.
that may be the case, but I think it really would only be an issue for the village if we requested additional services on an hourly basis at a later point after their adjustment. But also,
Well, we should get confirmation
Yeah,
of that.
If the contract structure that it's a lump sum and you're paying out based upon a percentage of completion.
Yeah, then it's not an issue.
Then you're not focused on
That's right.
hourly rates.
That's
I
right.
think.
And I don't mind, to your point, that if we ask for something that's not in here, that they're going to charge me on an hourly rate, then they're entitled to charge me what they
But it's our
want.
prerogative to, we could say we'd like another lump sum based percentage.
Understood.
Uh,
Okay. All right.
I say that having been locked in the contract for 10 years.
I know. Well, that's why I said 8 or 9 months. They said it'll take 8 months, and I'm saying, okay, give me the price for 8 or 9 months. That's all. But fair enough. Anybody else have a question?
No, I mean, I just want to say, having participated through all of the sort of, going through all of the proposals and through all of the meetings, I agree with you, Mike. I think that obviously we unanimously sort of came to the same place. I think that's an important thing. We all sort of evaluated separately and came together, and we ended up in the same place. I think we had the benefit of sort of seeing them very close together, back to
Yeah.
back to back.
Yeah.
And I do think that what we were able to see in the projects that they talked about was sort of the experience that is
Yeah.
really relevant to what we need. And that, I think, is really gonna help in this process. I think, they already understood what we needed. I think the community engagement piece, right, was like what we all really understood was something these firms had to be strong in, and I think they also had that component. So, I think we did carefully weigh all of them, but I think this was the right choice.
So let me ask a question of the board. If we're trying to figure out what the next steps are, Arlene and I have had an opportunity.
Endless
yeah,
hours.
Exactly,
To think about
with
this.
these guys and with other, competitors. Do you want an opportunity, even if it's, they're on video, to talk to the firm, to ask questions, or at least to see, particularly for you folks who are staying on the board, to, even if it's just a personality fit, to talk to the people who are gonna be doing this, because this is not cheap. That's not a reason to want to know you'll get along, but, you know, if we're gonna spend the money, we should know that we can work with them and make this work. And it could be at the same meeting that we're looking at a contract, because we can go back to them and say, okay, let's try to put this into a form that we could actually approve, but we want to talk to you at the same time.
Yeah, I do. We'd like really like to have a little. Because compelling, but
Mhm.
I don't have a sense of how they work. They have a vision, but fix directly.
I had some questions about this engagement piece also, because I think that's the issue where I'm working, come out a little basic.
Yeah.
And it's like, I would really like to hear how they could do things differently, because even though we got to have the Route 9 thing, it's like, no one has told us about this.
Yeah, I know.
Open houses, John put in the letter, there were 250 people at the first one. So it seems like no matter what you do, there's always this.
house.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
like short of knocking on people's doors, I don't know. And
Right.
so I'd really like to hear, because a lot of the proposal has to do with the engagement, both
Yeah.
financially and time wise. And that's something I just want to hear more about what their plans are with that, because.
I played your role at every meeting.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, thank you
Well-
for doing that.
What I wanted to say was, first of all, thank both of you for doing the big lift. And of course, thank you, Mike, for all of your work on this. And I trust your input, like, that you are very thorough in the selection process. And I think, after re-reviewing this, I would like a brief opportunity to talk, but I trust in that process that you've gone through, and I know how much work, and I know I've been downloading with.
Yeah, I mean, I think the interesting thing about all of the different firms that address sort of the community engagement piece, I think they probably, in my view, were the most creative
Yeah.
in sort of how you engage people in a way. They have this sort of like, they put this map and they have blocks, right? And like the community is able to like try to, I think their approach is very creative, and they understand sort of I thought the difficulty that communities like ours, they faced it in other communities in engaging the public, but I think, we probably also felt like personality, they were the best.
Yeah, I think they certainly have the experience, they have the strategies. I think I would caution that they won't come with definitive plans, that they will want to develop those with us in here, not just from a selection committee about what works well and what doesn't work so well in town, but talk to a lot more people before their specific, the events are designed, before they determine how they broadcast and share them. And it's the same approach I would take. Like we can't really just come in with a way of working that was successful in the last place that we were with another community that we worked with. Everyone is really good. And they want to find out who the champions are and who are the people that can be advocates and spread the message. They have to kind of do call it a mapping, community mapping exercise.
I think they'll also have an expectation. This is from board members who continue on, that board will play a role, that community leaders will play a role in reaching out, because they will not, you were sort of making this point, they will not instinctively know who is a community leader, and we all have to work together. But they will amplify what we do.
And actually, Mike, what you said is an answer. Like if they were sitting here and they said what you said,
Yeah.
that's a good answer. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'm not saying that they need to tell me like on November 17th, we're gonna do this. I don't mean that. I meant like, how do you generally develop a
What's
strategy?
the approach? Yeah.
Because we've never seen anything succeed in that area. And what you started to say was, they would say more, I understand that. But you're basically saying, well, we work with the board, we figure out you just walk through the beginning,
Right.
what I'd expect to hear from them.
Yeah, and to their credit, at some point during the contract discussions, they reached out and asked for the FPC's list of stakeholders, which we developed. It's 100 some odd community members, and they have their whatever roles they may have in the community or past committee positions and board positions all listed, and they thought it was just the best thing in the world to have.
Yes,
as a
thank you to
starting
the
point.
FBC and I guess Michael Hanna.
It's Michael Hanna who's
Yeah.
online here and David who helped with it.
So let me attempt to give you what I think we're asking you to do, and people can correct me as I go. I would go back to BBB and I would tell them that we'd like to go forward. We want to put this into a form that we can use, but we would like, if, whether the contract's ready at the next meeting or not, we'd like an opportunity, or at least a meeting at which they find convenient, to have the opportunity to have the other board members want to ask a few questions. Doesn't sound like it's going to be a lengthy session for them, but just to sort of close the loop.
Would they also like update the timeline? Now that we-
Oh, it would be, yeah.
Actually, that's not a bad idea, Larry. You could say to them, on the assumption that you get approved, I don't know, end of October.
It will take some thought because we'll be hopping over the holidays now.
That's fair.
So, it probably was.
Anybody else? Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
thank you all.
Appreciate it.
It's been like-
We're here on this night for you, I think.
Yeah.
No, I think that's why we changed the date.
It is, it is.
So we appreciate it.
Because my last meeting would reduce tomorrow.
Uh-oh.
Thank
Well,
you.
you'll let me know when you can, what's happening with my
I
hometown.
will.
Oh, thank you, Katie.
You even changed the,
Yeah.
That's-
Okay, thank you, everybody who is from the, representing the Cosmopolitan Building. I don't know how you're all gonna get up here in two chairs, but you can draw a lot and decide who comes up. And if somebody sitting back there wants to say something, we would prefer they come up near the microphone when they're ready. Larry, is that one working? That portable? No, but what about that one up top?
Yeah, so.
All right,
Depends on. We try to minimize the number of speakers to make.
no problem, no problem. Thank you, and thanks for your patience. I know we're not too far behind. For us, that's pretty good. So please.
Good evening, folks. David Steinmetz from the law firm of Zarin and Steinmetz. Pleased to be back before all of you, back in this room where I have spent many a night, even though I have not appeared in front of many of you. The mayor knows and Mary Ann and Larry know that I have spent probably in their minds too many nights in this room. Caesar, keep quiet back there. Very pleased to be here representing the Cosmopolitan Building, Carlos Pedro and Astrobuck LLC with regard to what we'd like to present as an informal pre-submission conceptual redevelopment for the building. We're excited to be here because this is the potential to be something very special in your village. Not only is this a true architectural gem of a building that has kind of lost some of its luster as a result of time and some of the additions and things that have been done. But we actually believe, and Carlos believes, that you have an opportunity for a really interesting, fun, mixed-use development of a hotel, spa, restaurant, and residential. And that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. I'm joined by Carlos Pedro, who's sitting behind me. I'm also joined by Carlos Cardozo, interestingly from the firm of BBB. Carlos, I don't know whether Mike touted it, maybe you all know, but he's going to be too humble to say it. They are one of the literally preeminent, highly acclaimed architectural firms that does adaptive reuse and redevelopment. So it is, for me as a land use practitioner, really a privilege to be working with Carlos and BBB on this, because this is a cool project and we have amazing architects, and you'll see that momentarily. Not to take wind out of the others' sails, John Canning, a absolutely terrific Irvington resident and traffic consultant as part of our team, as well as Rich Williams from Insight Engineering, who I don't know if he's online, will be our civil engineer, and my colleague Aaron Warner is with us tonight as well. Carlos and his company have operated the building for the last couple of years. As some of you or all of you may know, it has been operated really as a commercial rental building consistent with zoning. It is sort of a light industrial-ish kind of building with a lot of front-facing warehouse delivery, point of delivery, garage doors, et cetera, loading bays. It has struggled recently, as many office buildings in our county have, certainly ones that are not easily accessed for commercial activity and delivery, et cetera. It was designed, the building itself was designed by Stanford White, what, about 100 years, a century ago, and I'm sure you'll talk more about it. It's located within the B zone. The B zone, your B zone allows a multitude of uses. It allows for hotel, it allows for restaurant, it allows for residential. It's got some peculiarities, but for the most part, what we're seeking to do from a land use standpoint is essentially permitted under existing zoning. In addition, your comprehensive plan has also spoken very laudably about adaptive reuse. And that's exactly what you're going to see Carlos would like us to do. The concept would be approximately 72 hotel rooms in a adaptively reused main building, roughly 31 residential units for most likely sale, but at this point, I don't think anything is locked in terms of whether you rent or sale, but I think the concept would be largely 31 residential condominiumized units on the upper floors, a spa for both hotel guests and folks that might want to come for the day, about a 4,200 square foot spa, and a restaurant of about 10,000 square feet. I think Carlos will explain the seating for that, outdoor, indoor. And I'm sure you're all wondering, how does this get parked? That's one of the reasons that John Canning is here. This site, we believe, can be parked in accordance with zoning. It can be parked properly. It would be a variety of self-park, valet, and some stackers. And we have spent some time thinking through how parking, traffic, and circulation would occur. Notably, you'll see shortly that the redevelopment of this building would not require it to go any higher than the highest portion of the building that exists now. So it's allowed Carlos to do some very preliminary visual site studies of views into the site from multiple angles. And some of you have seen some of this already, but it was very, and in fact, since we first spoke to the village and asked for this meeting, Carlos and our team have actually brought the building down a little bit more. So we actually can say it is literally not higher than the highest point of the building. Carlos is going to walk you through some preliminary visual analysis. Now, this is one of those odd meetings where we together are not looking to put things up on the screen, broadcast this wildly to the press and the public, and leave you all with materials to study, let alone having had a chance to study them in advance. That's not normally how either one of us would do this. We've chosen, and I had mentioned this to Larry in advance, we had chosen to do this in this fashion because it is conceptual. We have really not fully baked anything, though a lot of time, as you'll see, has gone into this. And we're concerned that this is an important application and you're just hearing about it literally for the first time. Our team feels we don't want to let the public, let alone the press, get out in front of you. We really want a chance to speak to you. And I'll be frank, we're here tonight to get some preliminary and honest feedback. Carlos would tell you that he is at a pivotal point in the ownership of this building. The anchor tenant is set to vacate its space, and he is left with a critical decision. Do I stay and hold and keep operating this as a commercial rental property? Or do I take the opportunity now, bite the bullet, go through a process and reinvent and reinvigorate the building? We're here to reinvent and reinvigorate the building. If that's not what you all want to do, as much as we want to do it, and I think he does too, I'm really asking you to be candid and tell us that. If you don't have the wherewithal, the time, and the interest in seeing this gem come back to life in a different way, tell us. Sounds really cool, guys, but no way. Conversely, if you're willing to go through a process and frankly, the second thing, and I can't see him, but I know he's burning his eyes probably through my back right now. He's made it very clear to us, he kind of needs to know as realistically as possible in the first quarter of 26, whether this thing has legs and traction and really is happening. I know as much, maybe sometimes more than you all, what that process looks like. And I know that we have to do a lot of work over the next 5 or 6 months. We're ready to do that. We're ready to do the stormwater analysis, the visual analysis, the fiscal analysis. Obviously, we have architects that are way out in front in terms of their ability to vision and create. And most importantly, and the reason he's sitting in the room is John Canning knows, and Aaron and I know that traffic and parking is likely going to be one of the biggest issues for the folks that are local to the building. So we're ready to wrestle and deal with all that. We wouldn't be here if we didn't think intelligently and rationally we could do this thing and do this in a way that not only would you guys and your village be proud, but Carlos Pedro and his family will be proud. So with that having been said, procedurally, if we were to go forward with this, there are a number of technical zoning tweaks that probably need to be done. We've discussed those very, very preliminarily with staff and with Mary Ann. I'm not here to talk about that tonight. Happy to answer questions and go there if you wish. But suffice it to say that I believe this process would involve your board, because there would be some zoning tweaks that would be needed. And fortunately or unfortunately, it would also involve the planning board and a fair amount of time and effort in front of the planning board. We totally understand we will have to go through the secret process, the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act. We've done it. Our team knows how to do that. We think we can do that efficiently for Carlos, but there's a lift ahead of us. So with all that having been said, the upsides for you guys, take the building that he's about to show you. It's a great building, but it's seen better times and we can restore it. We can put the building to really productive use. It will generate hotel tax, real property tax, sales tax. Suffice it to say, we don't have a fiscal analysis conducted, but it's probably in the neighborhood of hundreds of thousands of dollars of additional revenue to the village and the taxing authorities. So there's that really good thing. And for anyone that's looking for a massage or a facial, always a nice thing to go to Irvington for that. So with that, it's all yours.
All right.
So I'm assuming from what you said, you'll pass it around and we pass it back.
That is what we're asking. We appreciate the courtesy and
We have to
the.
sign an NDA.
John did that for everyone in advance.
Yeah, hold on.
So it's being passed around the booklets. My name's Carlos Cardoso, partner of Ireland Development. What I do ask is, this is kind of a different way to present, is that you follow along with me as I flip through the pages and not get ahead of me. So I can explain
The next one.
Yeah, we have.
the whole process to David's point. Let me just start by saying this, to David's point. A lot of work went into this. But just as he said, this is a balancing point. But the work that went into this is to see if there's a feasible, viable project for Carlos Pedro. Who Carlos makes it really nice and complicated. To see if it's viable fiscally and can we really do it? We can, to what David just said, we can. But now there's a balancing act, which is to work with you. Can we make it work? So what we're showing here, what we'll go through is nothing's obviously in stone, but it was also some images to how can we bring this building back to life and do an adaptive reuse. So that's really the whole goal here to do this. So we flip through the opening page. This has our firm profile. I think you all know us, but we've been in business since 1965. We've done many historical preservation projects, especially in hospitality, from the old post office that you see in the top left-hand side that was an adaptive reuse as well, restored, all the way to others that we'll go through. Let's start with the existing photos, and if you flip through the next one,
Pages 4 and 5.
4 and 5. When Carlos approached us about this idea, the first thing, obviously, it's an amazing building. It's a Stanford White building. Don't quite understand why that addition went onto the back, but we will not get into that. But there's a jewel here of the building, and that's great. However, how it affects the community, what the community, how it's going to engage with it is important. So before we put any ideas, and I want to take you through the process to how we got to where we're going, is we did just site view studies, impacts from, see on page 5, from the north side of Buckhouse Street, the south side, especially the south side seems like there's 3 incongruent buildings that really don't connect to each other, don't really speak the same language in the midst of a Stanford White building. And if you flip to
Page 6.
page. I can't flip it. There's more views, obviously, from Station Road, and that is one that really took us back. It's a loading dock, in the midst of a residential building. I get it, it's an office building, but what are we going to do about that? How are we going to transform this building? And we pondered this for quite some time. How do we change this? As we move forward through it, to David's point, in a B district, business district, we went through that. If you go to now page 8 and 9, and I'll skip through a lot of the details in terms of zoning and stuff, but what I wanted to bring the complexity on page 8, when you look at the overall site, we have our building, we have the parking spaces, we're going to say towards the water, the back, 62. And then there's another 1-story office building, which is on grade with the public park. And the grading through this whole site is quite severe as it goes from north to south, vice versa. So we have to deal with that as well and get some creative ideas. David stated, right now we're looking at 72 keys for the hotel. We're not looking to do any more than 31 residents. And when we calculate what you see here, we took the worst case scenario in terms of seating for an event space and a restaurant at 165. We come up to a number of 192 parking spaces that we're trying to resolve for the site. And then the loading dock, because you can't have a hotel, premier 5-star hotel, without a loading dock and a bona fide backhouse. You will not attract the top hotel rooms out there. So we worked through that, and that's where we kind of is the project viable. We spent a lot of time because obviously we understand you don't want to John Canning, who will explain the traffic component and how do we get the traffic off the street. And I'll go through that. But that kind of set the stage of what we needed to do to meet the requirements. And on page 10, there's a Kinley Horn traffic study back from 2018 that was done. They'll take you through others. But as we start page 11, massing diagrams, knowing this program and knowing the challenges of the existing building, if you go to page 12 and 13, this is where can we solve for the program, and then can we solve for the issues, obviously, that we need to for the community and for the town. The first one is on page 12. This is the existing building. Stanford White towards the water, the red brick building, 4 stories, existing towards the back, and then the 1-story office building. That's what we have to work with. The first thing we thought was it's imposing. It's imposing on Station Road. It's imposing on Buckhouse, and that's where you got to enter through. So our idea was just a thought, remove the entire red building. Because actually when I visited the building with Carlos, there's about a 4-foot gap between the red building and the back of Stanford White, the Cosmopolitan. the original facade is still there, remnants of it. So our idea is, let's bring it back. So we're thinking of take that red building out, and we're gonna create two new wings, which we would need to facilitate the keys, the hotel and the residence. And I'll take you through that. And then there's a play and an idea there of that you'll see. The reason for carving that out is to create a grand entrance, take traffic away from the street when people come, and you'll see that. That was a thought process, right? I'm taking you through the thought process. Does it work? We'll take you through that. When you flip through the pages, 14, 15, more views. We were studying view number 1, which is from the train station as you exit. What do you currently see? You see some of the Cosmopolitan building. You really more, the imposing red brick building is more there on your view. So that to us is really an important view of what somebody sees. On page 16 and 17, on 16 specifically, right across from the park or by the parking lot, obviously you see all of the Cosmopolitan. And note the one-story office or business commercial building that is on grade to the parking. Our idea started to flow with that in terms of what do we do with parking? How do we make this a little bit more appealing? Because it's not that appealing as well. 17 from southeast, from Buckhouse.
Shut up, okay.
Right. On 17 is really where you see 3 components, 3 disengaged components. The Cosmopolitan building to your right, obviously further down on the left is the red brick building, and then there's also a little component, a cafe that's there, part of the building, but totally disjointed, right? Not really bringing the whole vibrant connection to the street, and really lack of sidewalk. So pedestrians, how do they circulate through here? As we go through 18, then eventually 19, but on 18, if you all know this view from Station Road, this is exactly what you see, 2 buildings. An office building or commercial industrial office building. And that's our idea that it came to carve out, remove this component. Our plans and sections, if you go to page 20 and 21, started to say, what if? What can we do if we pull this building back? The first thing we did is we spent 2 weeks, we digitized the entire building. It's what we wanted to do. It wasn't just to digitize it to create a facade, it was to understand that what we're saying right now can be done. Because we had to study heights, we had to study topography, elevation, and what you see on the section on page 20. The original 3 stories, this is an east-west cross-section on the right side of page 20, is the Cosmopolitan building. The first, the second, the third floor would be the hotel, keys. There would be a restaurant facing towards the north side. And there's a loading dock you're going to see that's tucked away. More importantly, there's a hotel back of house that starts at above grade on the north side. As we head south, it goes below grade. And that took a while to figure out. Again, without a back of house, we can't have this program. And we got it to fit to work. And I'll take you through that. And the top 2 floors that we'll talk about, 4th and the 5th, are the residential floors, which the height meets the height of the cupola. We're able to do some engineering, figuring out how we could make it so it's not taller than the top of the cupola. Now, it's engineering, we'll take you through that. Page 21 is the north-south cross section, and you kind of see the below grade, really, the hotel back of house, how we get it to fit. I'll take you through that in plans and how it works, but it really is the topography, the way it works is higher on the south side, so we kind of tuck it underneath. Nobody really sees it, and how all the back of house is out of sight. On page 22 starts the plans and the parking. And this is where we started to get, mind you, as we're going through this, we're not talking about design, we're trying to see does the program fit, and how does it relate, and how can it work within the neighborhood and the town. The ground floor plan, what we did when we took out the red brick building and we had left the Cosmopolitan, it pushes everything further back. And we created the two wings on the south and the north. But what we did is we created a portico shape per se, so that cars can come in, circulate, do the drop off, and then come off back onto the street. So there's not cars on the street. And it can accommodate quite a few of them. But on top of that, there's parking. They don't stay there. It's for drop. When we go to page 23, right to the right side, that 1-story commercial building that Carlos owns that's at grade with parking lot, public parking. What we did is we raised that to be 2 stories, tucked it underneath what says green roof garden above. So it's technically underground when you come off the Cosmopolitan, but yet it's on grade with the parking lot. It's 2 stories. One ramp would get the upper level, one ramp gets the lower level. If you look on page 22, there's another parking road exit ramp towards the south side, which also acts as an easement for the Hudson loft. So we have to keep it there. So when the cars come in and the cars come out, they get to the street, there's no backing up. To David's point, the lower level is self-park, even though it'd be valet park, and the upper level is probably going to be stackers, where somebody, valet person takes them, cars get stacked. That allows us to accommodate 192 parking spaces. Now, obviously, the first thing is, what's this thing going to look like, right? It's a parking building, per se, that's tucked away, and I'll take you through that in a second. On the next page is 25, actually 25, 24. All right. But on the first level, you see what the plan is going to be. The first level, really, there's a restaurant as it shows you, there's amenities. We're not sure yet what the amenities are going to be because the hotel component, to David's point, probably will be a spa. Definitely will be a restaurant, serves both the public and the hotel itself, the residents, and then the other amenities can be cafe or whatever may be an event space that faces towards what I'm going to call the lawn, the outdoor amenity. Below that is actually the parking space. And what you see on the page adjacent to that is the upper level of the parking lot. One ramp takes you to the upper level of the parking, the other level takes you to the lower level. And then there's a below grade, which we've worked through. On the following page, which should be 26 and 27, how do the floors work? The second and third floor is the actual second and third floor of the Cosmopolitan. The key count is not what we wanted. The key count is because we worked at the window openings of the Cosmopolitan because we wanted to restore it, not start putting new openings. That would be kind of productive. So that's how the key count came about. And then the next question is, but does that key count work? It seems to work. So just so you all know, that's the facade would be restored, and we'll go through that. On top, fourth and fifth are 2 new floors. They're the residential floors. We didn't lay it out, but it would be 31 units between both. The first question that comes up is, well, what is this going to look like? And it took time because this is where an adaptive reuse and the sensitivity comes in. You don't want a sculptural piece that's screaming here. That's not who we are as an architectural firm. That's not what this town, I believe, would want. It has to be respectful. It has to be respectful to the building, Stanford Way, and it has to fit in. So we did that, start that process on the next pages, 28 to 9, by looking at inspirational images. First, I think there's a huge opportunity to bring back the entrance that was on the Cosmopolitan. And obviously we can't see through the walls. We've tried to research for the drawings. We're getting there, but these images that you're seeing here, and I'll go through with you, brings the elegance to this building that it deserves, right? Whether it's the Milan that you see here or One Sutton Place, or if you flip through even the Newport, the Elms in Newport, it just, you kind of get the sense what this wants to be. When we look at the addition, the 2 floors, we started to look at how we could play with a mansard. Mansard roof kind of crowns the building and also lack of a better word, visually can hide the height. And you'll see how we did that as well. So we did those studies as well there, inclusive of modern interpretations, even the 201 Park Avenue South, which is a W Union Square hotel that we worked on to restore that. And now it's obviously W hotel as well. So this leads to the fun part. So after saying all this, what's the possibility? We kind of know the program works. We're trying to make the parking component work, the height component. If you flip to pages 34 and 35, on 34 is the existing loading dock on Bucket. What you see on the bottom of the page is we took away the red building. We created the two wings on the north and the south. We brought back the entry to the Cosmopolitan building. What's hard to see in plan is that porte-cochere that actually goes in, it actually goes a little bit lower. So from a sight line, you don't see the cars. And when you get the greenscape done, it also buffers the sound, but it still creates this beautiful visual focal point when you're at Station Road. You get the sense of that. The
Are
two,
those windows still there?
I'm sorry,
Are those windows still there?
I don't know.
Oh.
I don't know. We would recreate them to match the
I
windows
just
along.
wondered because you said there was a few feet between the red building and the.
Right. It seems like it's blocked up. I mean, we couldn't really see it. I would say probably, but we would recreate the windows to be exactly the facade.
On the back, on the, what's technically the front.
The front, what's the front now, correct. The top two floors and the wings, we tried to bring the vernacular of the Stanford white to be cohesive. And you see that the top floor, what's grayed out, sort of a grayish color, is actually the mansard roof, which creates this crown and kind of gives you a visual that it's it's not 2 stories in height. On the opposite page, on page 35 to your right-hand side, the view you currently have from the parking, the public parking, is what you're seeing there. We just finished taking these pictures. What we're proposing is what you're seeing there, which is more cohesive, tied together. What we did with that 2-story structure with the parking you see there is basically the same architectural style. Above that is the greenscape, or the lawn, if you want to call it that. The openings you see there is for the garage component, but I think it actually enhances the actual parking space on the public parking. And working through also the sidewalk component. The last 2 pages, because it's not on the screen and you don't get the same effect, obviously just blowing this up, so you actually get to see the visual and understand it a little bit more. Those are our thought process to the planning, to the programming, and obviously in knowing what challenges lie ahead, but this is a work session to get your feedback, your concerns, what you're worried about, and how we can help move this forward.
My initial reaction is I think it's beautiful. What I worry about is the traffic. You seem to be addressing the on-site issues. You've been creative. And I'm not speaking from a technical perspective. I'm not going to pretend I know all the rules that apply from a zoning perspective, but I think it's thoughtful. It's beautiful, but there is a pretty heavy load of traffic that's coming in and out of roads where, I mean, I've gone through a meeting talking about whether we should turn Buck out from where you're located to to Main Street into a one-way direction, because it's too narrow. And you made the observation about the sidewalks, which, we're working on. That's our problem, not necessarily yours. So, I mean, that's the thing that was close. I know you have John in the back row there, and I know he's good. But no matter how good you are, there's a certain volume of traffic that's coming in and out of this. And timing's an issue because you have the train stopping and going, and it's a multiplier.
John, if we could just have John Canning just give us
Of course.
2-3 minutes,
Yeah.
because one of the issues that I think matters to our team and to John, and John has kind of identified this for us. The building right now generates far more cars than you all may realize.
That's an interesting point. Yeah.
And there's a lot of parking that occurs on site right now, every day. Also, the parking that's coming into the village associated with that building currently typically has AM and PM peaks. It's coming at a specific time in a specific range, and hotels and residences and spas don't flow at the exact same time. But don't take that from me. John, would you come up and just chat for a couple minutes?
Sit down, you just said everything I was gonna say. Thank you, David. For the record, John Canning with Kimley Horn. I'm a resident of the village, so I have a good sense of what goes on the streets. I also actually helped the village with the study, and at the time we decided there's not much going on. We'll have to look at that if this moves forward. Obviously, this is a transformative project, but there is a building there now. And the swap outs are kind of similar. I mean, there has been a restaurant or two restaurants down. Gosu was one. Before that, there was an Italian one, and maybe one before that. I believe there certainly was a spa. There still may be a spa there. There's a retail florist there now. And then, as David mentioned, you have the office and the warehouse and the business activities, which are, generally speaking, you come to work in the morning and you leave in the afternoon. So there's a peaking. It doesn't quite sync with the train. The other aspect is that what we're putting in also has ebbs and flows. So people go to restaurants usually 6, 7 in the evening or on a Saturday. They go to people who go to work in the morning. So there's different peaks of ebbs and flows for the traffic. It doesn't all happen at the same time. You could get 90% of it happening at the same time, but it certainly doesn't all happen. Importantly, I think, we're providing the code required 192 parking spaces. Our code, like most of the codes in this county, are a relic of the last century, and we're way over parked. So it always scares people to hear that there's going to be 190 parking spaces. But frankly, we're doing that because you require us to do it, not because we need them. So the amount of traffic that we're going to generate will be significantly less.
Sorry, what, how many spots do you have now, in the 60s or
Something like 62.
We've started to crunch the numbers from a traffic perspective. We obviously, if this goes forward, we'll have to study it in detail at whatever intersections you deem are appropriate. I'm sure you're going to retain a consultant to make sure that we study all that is necessary in a suitable fashion. But what I can tell you is on a weekday, the project's not going to generate in the morning and afternoon peak hours significantly more traffic than what the existing building generates, mostly because the restaurant is not going to peak in the morning. The spa is probably not going to peak in the morning. In the afternoon, you'll have some activity at the spa, you'll have some activity at the restaurant, but it usually peaks later on in the evening. The hotel is generally throughout the day, and 31 residents you would hardly know, to be honest with you. I think a good way to look at it, and I'm going to put this out there, there are, I'm going to say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hotels probably on 119, from 7 if you add the Hampton Inn over to Route 9 where you have the conference center. And if you have, this is 71 keys, if you consider the residents as keys as well, so it's 100 keys. That's smaller, I believe, than any of the hotels that you have along that corridor. And if you drive by the Courtyard or Spring Hill Suites or even the Hampton Inn, you don't see that much activity going. Yeah, you'll see a car now and again. Sometimes you'll even see a bus parked up on the side of the hill of the Hampton Inn and wonder how it got there. So that's the hotel. The bigger hotels, for example, usually the Hilton, it's now the Sleepy Hollow Conference Center. They have multiple restaurants, they have an event space, they have more rooms, they have a pool, and still they're reasonable. The Westchester Marriott, I think, has 2 conference centers, two ballrooms, 2 restaurants,
probably 300 rooms, it's probably 3 times. That's a busy hotel, mind you, but what's being proposed here is a third of the size. And it's right next to rail, so it's very convenient for especially employees. You come on a regular basis, you have a regular shift, we've got a great train service. So on a day-to-day basis, switching out these least intense uses, and I'll get to the key one really in my mind, is the event space. Switching out the current uses for the proposed uses in the busiest hours in this area, which is the morning and the afternoon on a weekday, you won't see any perceptible difference. The biggest difference you'll see is on a Saturday afternoon when you have, and you won't have a 150-person event every weekend, but when you have a 150-person event and you have the restaurant that's busy, that's probably your busiest time. And we've crunched the numbers, and we believe that at that time you'll see probably a little over 100 extra trips an hour. So that's maybe 2 extra trips a minute on the busiest time when you have a 150-person event. And then from your board's perspective, though it's not a traffic issue, the other time period that you would probably be interested in would be on a Saturday night at 10:30 when an event ends, and people will be leaving. And by our estimates, there'll be about 80 cars leaving at the end of an event, and they can go up Station Road, they can go up Main Street. It's not a capacity issue, but it's it's a substantial.
Just adding one thing, one of the concepts as we've talked a bunch about these events. We understand that John said he's most focused on the events, and he's educated all of us on that. We believe if this hotel, if this mixed use building had events like a wedding, chances are a good number of the folks attending that wedding would likely end up having rooms and spending the night in the 70 keys.
And going to the spa.
So we do believe that that softens some of the numbers, but we've got to analyze that. We've got to prove that out. And John just hit one other thing that was in my notes and I didn't mention it. I talked about these zoning tweaks. We're talking to you about a hotel, about a spa, about restaurant. In 192 spaces, we did the math based upon your code, which is you have to have this many spaces for the hotel, this many spaces for the restaurant, this many spaces for the spa. But I may go and stay in the hotel, eat a meal in the restaurant, and my wife is going to drag me into the spa with her. So we're going to be in that building for 3 different uses with 1 car, but your code requires 3 spaces for us. So one of the tweaks would be to have shared parking built into your code for something like this, which is a mixed use building. That's one of the simple mathematical issues that John identified.
When we met in a smaller group, we talked about the possibility of I'll call it traffic conflict with the Hudson Loft.
Yep.
And how you might address that. I mean, in other words, you're trying to do an event and they're trying to do it.
So I guess I should put this out there. That may take care of itself because that use, its approval is predicated upon the availability of the 60 parking spaces that are owned by this property. So that's something that we will have to address, but
We understand we have to address that as we get further in. We've heard different things. Some of those things are anecdotal.
Yeah, I understand.
So we need to understand that better, but we know we need to solve for that.
Have you addressed them? Oh, sorry, go ahead. Sure?
Yeah.
Okay. So you may not be aware that we've had the people who live on Buckout Street, just up from the building, have been having a big problem with noise from Hudson Law.
Yes.
And that's something the board has gotten, well, John really has taken the brunt of it. So I won't say the board, that's not fair. John has had to really play mediator with this and everything. So my question is, while from a traffic point of view, spreading out the course of the day rather than AM, PM might be desirable, for the people on the block who are already dealing with being kept up at night by events at Hudson, how would your use for this affect noise for them at night and increase traffic if that lets out at 10:30 at night?
so I'll address the traffic,
Go ahead.
right? There's no question that when an event ends, there will be more traffic. The capacity is there. It's really more an annoyance issue, if I can put it that way, that I'm used to my street being sleepy, and now on a Saturday night, people are driving home. It's a little, I live on Ferris Street, so on Monday evenings, and I come home and there's no parking, it's a little annoying that the board is meeting, but
Only certain times.
Hey, I walk here.
There are certainly times when you probably have no problems.
but my
Can we
point
strike
is,
that from the record?
my point is, I recognize that I live in a village and that the board has important work, and, you know, as long as it's not, it's what I don't like, right? Particularly is when, we have parades, which I respect, but then the street's blocked and I gotta go 6 times around to find my way out. But that happens once a year, right? And then you say that's what you do.
On the noise issue, Carlos, do you want to address it? Because one of you explained to me, and I don't know the Hudson Lofts building, there's a physical structural difference in terms of noise suppression in that building versus ours, or?
Well, when we designed the building, from an interior noise perspective, it would be acoustically treated. So the noise that's being created, let's say for an event space, it would be contained. And I'm not worried about that. The entry point, one of the reasons we did it as it's sinking down like that is it will buffer the noise as well. Would it completely buffer it 100%? No. But it will buffer it to us. So we can control the noise component internally that's created. On the exterior from the cars and whatnot, I mean, not as much as anybody.
Let me ask, I know you haven't started to look for who might be the hotel company, for example, or others that might occupy these spaces. I'm gonna ask you the question and I'll tell you why I'm asking. At what point do you start to look for those potential, I'll call them tenants, I don't know what your relationship will be. And the reason I ask that is all these problems that we're raising are really your problems. Because if I own a hotel company, I'm not coming to that spot if I think you can't get the traffic out because no one's coming to my hotel. So in your mind, as this process evolves, when do you get to that state? Are you waiting to find out whether it's the village board or the planning board says, hey, it's okay, go ahead? And this isn't, your answer doesn't sway me one way or another. I'm just curious because you've got to confront these even before we do.
The operators, it's simultaneous. As you're thinking through the project, we're also trying to find who those operators are. To your point, they're going to ask about the parking. Can it accommodate the parking? First question they're gonna ask, does the loading dock work? If it doesn't, we're not here.
Yeah.
We can't operate those. So they could ask a lot of questions and we have to prove it to them that it works.
Probably more than will, since they can't operate a business. Yeah.
It
you
won't
have-
Their
be
lifeline
viable.
depends on.
Yes.
There are a couple of, let's just call them high-end luxury hotel boutique lines that Carlos and his advisors have already started to kind of scope out. They have a sense, there's been nothing that's really been advanced. The time and the attention really was, before we go to them, does this guy think it can actually work?
Yeah.
So we've gotten to this point. Again, we promised we would come back to you. We would hope to come back to the village and say, we got something great that you'll be excited about, but we're not there yet.
Mary, I guess.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, because I think it's important for the board to understand
Sorry, is that Mike? That's a good one. Okay, no problem.
Yes. that this was David's calling zoning tweaks. Some of them are zoning.
That was
zoning
my
tweaks.
question. That
Some of
phrase
them
is
are big.
ringing in my head.
Some of them are big zoning changes, and one of them is a height. You're gonna have to deal with
Yeah.
height down there. And you know how the village has dealt with height before. You're gonna have to, I think I understand it's not higher than the top of the dome, but what is their top, what's the height?
5 stories, correct?
Mhm.
Not, yeah, but number of feet, what is it?
It's, I think it's 67.
Yeah, 67.
We dropped from 68
Right
to
now,
67.
your code says nothing can be taller than 35 feet. So this is something that they'd never be able to get a variance for.
Can you just
They have to
refresh my
come
memory? The land kind of slopes. How do we measure?
Lowest to highest.
Thank you.
So, so you would have to amend the code to permit height. So I think, I'm not trying to do anything, but I think that should be out there that because the board is gonna have to do that, whether they're willing to do
So
that.
just so you hear the other perspective, and I totally respect Mary Ann's comment, and I hear she's not wrong. I am not as pessimistic on my ability to argue to the zoning board of appeals that I have a pre-existing non-complying bulk on that structure that's been there for a century. And that you have no idea, as much as Carlos and I like one another, I don't think he was happy when I told him, you gotta get this building down so that it's 67 feet, not 68 feet. He told me he had many good reasons why he wanted it to be 68 feet. And I said, well, if we can't get a zoning text amendment from the Board of Trustees, which I will tell you I think is prudent, and I can give you a host of reasons why, I could go to the zoning board, and I don't want to go to the zoning board and say I'm increasing the degree of noncompliance. So we're at 67 feet because you all live in a community that has a building that's 67 feet. And it's not an insignificant thing from a visual standpoint. And we can show you, and we will show you if we proceed, that from a visual standpoint, we're not going to create an adverse impact. Because the building, and he didn't stress it, I was going to interrupt him, but he was on too good a flow, the resi steps back on top of the building, right? So we will be able to show you doing cross sections that Caesar is going to make sure we do, that a person standing on Buckout is not going to see most of that 60 to 67 feet because it's stepped back based upon where I am on the block. But again, I'm a land use geek. I see these things all the time. I understand that, and I understand we have to pitch that. Having said that, I'm going to go back to something that I believe Carlos wants me to probably say as nicely and bluntly as I can. And I meant it when I said it because he stressed this, and he told some of you this already. If by the first quarter of 2026, he doesn't feel like he actually can make this thing happen, he's going in a different direction. It's not a threat, it's honesty, it's economic reality. It's a big building. There's a lot of expenses associated with it. A major anchor tenant is leaving. So to me, as a realist, as a pragmatist, you have an important decision to make. I've been here for some of the battles in the village, a lot longer than some of you have been living in the village. I have been at those. I get it. I know what can happen. I also know what can happen if you actually say to your village, we're actually going to do something really good with this really awesome building that looks like nothing special right now. It has a giant brick something or other parked in front of it. I don't know if you'll be excited about the uses that come into this light industrial commercial building in 26 if he has no choice. It is what it is. I really would like the chance with this team to work with you and Mary Ann to figure out how to slice some of it. The other tweaks to me are really not significant tweaks. It says, so I'm there, I feel I'm taking the bait, I'm gonna take it. Your code says you can have resi in the B zone, but it's gotta be above retail. But what if I only have the retail kiosk on the front left of the building, and then I have the spa, and maybe there's a restaurant? Is that considered retail? I probably need to clean up your code so I can have resi above the entire footprint of the residential above the entire footprint of the hotel building. You have another provision that says I can do adaptive reuse in the B zone, but only if I end up, Aaron, help me here, with churches or educational uses or something to that effect. Well, I want to do adaptive reuse. You guys should want us to do adaptive reuse. I did one of the largest adaptive reuses in this county. I want to do this one, but I need you to help do that. That's a good thing. You shouldn't want him to knock down this building. We should do adaptive reuse. That's a tweak. So when I talk about tweaks, there are 6 things I think we need to clean up, and I don't think any of them are unintelligent or irrational. And she's right. One of them's height.
I do not disagree that some of those things are stated. Don't get me wrong, and I'm not arguing against height. I'm just telling you it's something you guys would have to deal with.
No, I'm appreciating that you brought that up because as soon as I hear tweaks and like no big deal, I'm kind of like, is it?
And David,
What
I'm
are you
not
asking
sure,
us to do?
I hear you. It's a fair
I'm
question.
not sure whether you have this as a tweak, but I know at the last meeting, I pointed out that because there's residential, you have a requirement to have three affordable units, because you've got.
Totally understand that, and we didn't discuss that yet. We understand that there's some affordability requirement that we would have to satisfy. We know we will have to satisfy it in some fashion. Totally get that. And we've explained that to Carlos and how we do that and whether we have to be creative in some way or just straight up do it. Again, I have faced that issue multiple times, including up the block in the project that we worked on together and got approved 10 years ago that's finally being built. So
Yeah, okay, no,
I have a question about the environmental impact of it, about consideration of, you know, how green compliant or non-compliant would the building be, or what would be the environmental impacts? I mean, I noticed you have a green space above the parking. What is that green space meant to do?
We haven't gone that far yet, to be honest, but obviously we love to do the building as green as it can be. Haven't honestly studied.
Can you tell me, taking away the brick building and adding the residential units, are you increasing the mass or is it sort of a net?
Right now, it's about even, because we take it out, do the portion, but then we're adding to it. So the square footage is about the same, a little bit less maybe. But we're not increasing the non-compliance, if you want to look at it that way.
Got it.
bring them on, come on, come on. We're ready. We need to have a frame. I mean, again, ordinarily I would say, Carlos, we're doing a 15-minute pre-submission, quick little informal, and we're getting in and out of there. We can't do that. We need as much as, and I totally get the fact that we laid a lot of information on you in a short period of time. And Trustee Bloom, you're right. I said tweaks. To me, they're technicalities. That's what I meant by the word tweak. But I can make it easier. It's a question of, from a governmental standpoint, from a public policy and land use standpoint, as a village, as a trustee sitting in this village, can you live with something like this? Be proud of something like this? Are you gonna go there? Are your in-laws gonna stay there when they come visit? That's the question that I'm kind of asking you to consider. If you think it's crazy, tell me. I don't want to hear it, but I gotta make sure, I gotta make sure he hears that, because he thinks this is a great thing for the village. He's lived with this building for 2 years. He knows who's knocking on his door and who might consider renting light industrial building on Buckout Street in Irvington that looks like it does in that area. That's what you want as a government official. You may get that. That's not what you want. I think there's a pathway. I bang my head against the wall 3 or 4 nights a week in different communities all around this county. So I get it more than you can imagine. I have a client who thinks, David, you're not gonna have another hole in the side of your head on this one. This one we can do. That's up to all of us together. It's up to the planning board in the process. We know, the good news is Kimley Horn, they know what they have to do. Inside engineering, they know what they have to do. Whether I like it or not, I've been through this process. Unfortunately, I'm saying it, Caesar, unfortunately in this village more often than I would like, but I've survived. I'm ready to do it again because I honestly think this is something that's worth doing, but you guys have to want it.
I have to say, like, this is a beautiful design. I think you guys have done some really nice work, and it is a shame that it's a gem of a building. I've walked by it on both sides, and you think, on one side you're like, this is horror, and the other side you're like, it could have been Washington D.C. It's a lovely building. I appreciate really trying to do something to save it. But I do think we do have to address the concerns you brought up with. Like, we have to face our constituents, like, about the noise, about the traffic, about the height. I mean, especially those are the things that jumped out at me the moment you started talking. And I think if we can't address those things, it'll probably screech to a halt. Like, there's going to be a traffic study. Like, I'd like to imagine how it would work to make all this work. And I hear you. You've seen that. I would love more specifics probably on that, because I know. I mean, I can think of a list of neighbors of mine who've talked about stuff like this for similar kinds of projects and how it would never go through. I would love to see it work though. I mean, ultimately, I think I would love to see our village be vibrant and bringing in people and bringing in tax revenue and bringing in people to walk through our main street. There's a lot of pluses. if we can make it so that our neighbors don't hate us and vote us out of office, as they should if it doesn't work right. So I think if you can address those concerns, I think it's a very interesting idea. But I think it has to be addressed.
I guess I have I agree with all of that. I do think though, from the perspective of like future planning, right? Like this is what, I don't know if we have a big picture of what we have now, right? Like I think,
Covered all your best
Yeah.
thing.
no, this is the next one.
Oh.
I'm looking for the, not next, I'm trying to help you here. I'm looking for the not next.
Oh, okay, there's a plug, yeah. There it is.
Yeah.
The juxtaposition. to-
So my question, right, from the height, this is from you, Mary, right? Like, just from like the common sense, right, not being a land use lawyer, but being a lawyer. If you have this and we already have this height, and we're gonna have an adaptive reuse of the building, and we have the same height.
It's not the same.
It's not, because it's not,
Because what, the height is bumping up. Yeah, if it were all
Yeah.
the same height, there's not an issue. You probably wouldn't have to change the
Yeah.
code. The problem is that the height is bumping up
To that.
to the top of the dome, which is not really the height.
Right.
It is the highest point of the building, but it's not.
okay.
Now,
No,
that would be
I
the
understand,
problem.
so I just wanted to bring up
Yeah,
that, I
if
wanted
it
to
were,
bring up that
if
point.
it were only that high, yeah, you're right.
Yes.
I think
So
it
let's,
would be
because I think we have to
grandfathered.
clarify that point to bring it out, to sort of see that, right? So really what we're talking about is that we have existing domes that are a certain height. But we're gonna fill in that space, that's what you're asking for,
Exactly
is to fill in that space. And I think, and maybe I have the benefit of having had some more meetings and sort of seeing some more of the site plans, but I do think it's, we're gonna have to, as a board, we talked about why we're having this meeting and why we needed to sort of have like a line on this, but whether, I do think very realistically, this is what we have, and the benefit to the village of having something else, right? And whether we can get over the fill in space, right? And I think that's what we probably as a board have to decide, given and thinking about, right, all those other factors, the traffic and all of that. But I feel like that's sort of one of the threshold issues too, right? Are we willing to look at height? Because a height is a really big thing.
It was interesting. I did a little walk with one of our residents, who we were imagining what it would be like if they took out this brick building, and I was thinking about like
I'm
the
gonna say
view.
page 18 on that
Right.
one, sorry.
But it was interesting to think about is you take the brick building out, it actually improves a lot of people's views of like the river. You don't have this like, especially over here on the right, which I thought was really interesting. And I was like, is anyone actually impacted by the height being slightly higher up here? Because I don't think there's any houses that would be able to see, right? So I actually think that there might be a benefit in terms of like livability and actually like having instead of this ugly brick building, you have this beautiful slate, you have a little river. I don't think that's necessarily a
Yeah.
negative.
I mean, we have sort of the benefit of having seen
Yeah,
some
I
of those.
was
site
gonna say,
plan
you guys didn't
pictures.
speak to it necessarily, but you, in a prior meeting, you had said the only way you really see that residential mass is if you're on Station Road or slightly off Station Road.
Right.
And you were sort of comparing the relative views, and your angle, even at the end of Station Road, doesn't put the residential right in front of your face,
Right.
which obviously you did with intent, malice, I should say.
Guilty. No, but to your point, the building right now, if you look at it this way, it's imposing. When you push it back, which is hard to see on the rendering, the height is gonna match, no doubt about it, right? It's gonna be 67 feet, but what you visually see when it's pushed back is you don't see as much of that. Now, we would have to do sightline studies and from certain points, but I could tell you for sure, it won't be as imposing as what it is now. Because it's back almost 50, 60 feet. Look at the wings, you can't even see the wings versus the wings that are right on top. And again, on a rendering, it's really tough to do that. Needs to do a lot of photography and a lot of sightline studies. But I think you will see less of that giving a visual impact that it's lower, even though it's 67. Nobody's hiding that. You're going to have the two stairs. The question to your point, I think, is how do we make this in a way that it's not as impacts the site.
So while the question I'm about to ask shouldn't affect the substantive discussion, for David and Mary Ann, you had an early discussion about who would be, I'll call it lead agency. And it could be the board, correct?
It could
If
be,
we have
yeah.
to make multiple zoning decisions.
Yeah,
So I
Yeah,
just want
because there's-
everybody who's
there's
mulling
more-
this over.
there's more than
so that
one
they
board
can-
that has to make a decision. And when there's more than one board, you say, I want to be lead agents. Because whatever, whether you guys do the zoning changes, you have to do it, and the planning board has to review it. It's not clear whether the zoning board would.
And to be clear, Caesar, this is not a turf battle. I would gladly give you any difficult problem to handle. But my point, I want the people on either side of me to understand so that they can understand. It might be you that's making these decisions,
I
not,
understand.
not just the big ones, but some of the more subtle ones. Yeah,
I don't mean to interrupt, but I'm Cesar Manfred and Chair of the Planning Board. And I want to emphasize what Mary Ann said and talk about what David said. Unfortunately, we're the messenger for the code. And sometimes the code in Irvington is a little more restricted than anywhere in the county. And we're very hesitant to supersede a code and take on the responsibility. Trustee wrote the code, and then to go ahead with a large increase over the code is not our job.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to the height, I think trustees need to decide that, because I don't want to be sitting on the planning board and having to justify a great exceedance of an existing code to a room full of citizens.
you bring to mind, I think it was Shakespeare who said sometimes the law is an ass. So this could be one of those moments.
I mean, I think Caesar, you make a really good point, right? Like, I think this is why we talked about internal, right, what would be appropriate, because we don't want, if this is a project that we want to sort of see succeed, that we, are not going to put it in a planning board where you have no power to do anything, because you're sort of stuck with the
Right.
code.
Right.
For example, the traffic, it's important. We're dealing with traffic for over a year, 76 Broadway. So we have to deal with that, so I'm trying to eliminate things that
Got it.
just occurred.
And if we, perhaps you'll tell me this should be in an advice of council session, which is okay. Can we make decisions about this singular building?
Like
And we-
make a variation.
Yeah,
so
I'm
just for
gonna give
this.
them a pass for the height, just this building and not the entire zone. And you don't have to answer that here. You can answer it separate, but it's something to think about.
So I want to respond because I'm not on the hot seat like she is, because but she's
I
got.
can't rely on you, but I'll listen.
Can't rely on me, but I don't think I haven't thought about that issue. And I believe that you have the opportunity, because this is an adaptive reuse of a building, to do something that narrows the focus of what we're seeking to tweak. And it's one of the reasons, gang, that I've harped on the 67-foot number, because I have mass there. Not be a lot, maybe the top of 2 domes that were built in 1890, but I got 2 domes at 67 feet, and the world hasn't ended in Irvington. So I believe I could legislatively wrap myself in a purposes clause about why my provision that I would present to you in a zoning petition could fly and be rational. So, and I'll go one step further. People who aren't land use practitioners think, well, if you do something for one particular property, that's unlawful spot zoning. That is not unlawful spot zoning. Unlawful spot zoning is when you treat one property differently from its surrounding areas to the detriment of the surrounding areas. So if I can establish, and I think I have to establish for secret purposes anyway, that I'm not going to create an adverse impact to Buckout and South Astor, and that John Canning's going to help me explain temporal distribution of traffic, and Caesar's going to help me explain visual impacts, I don't think it's spot zoning. So that's my take but I'm getting paid by him to say that.
Appreciate the honesty.
Very good.
So, we can talk about that at another time.
Yeah, I mean, spot zoning does not mean just it's zoning for one thing.
Sure, I
It's really
understood.
misunderstood. It's
Understood.
spot zoning essentially is bad planning.
We agree on two things tonight. This is like really good.
So tell me what you need to walk away from here, other than, hey, go
It's
do
not
whatever you
me.
want.
It's
No,
not
no,
me.
I understand. It may be that we need to sort of think about it a little more. I think you should, somebody could stop me here if I'm misstating this, get the feeling that we like the whole concept.
That's good.
But, and we've identified a couple issues that we have to figure out, height, traffic, and the traffic may be a longer term issue because you got to do a study that goes with the project, but,
Actually, I have a question about the traffic.
go ahead.
I've been noticing that the exit from there's one entrance for the parking and
It's the
one
north and
exit.
south side, ingress,
Looking at
egress
page
point.
22.
Right.
Does that mean most event traffic is gonna go through Station Road, or does that mean? What are we picking? I know that's a preliminary question.
John, do you have any sense of that?
One exits through the lower level.
Exits at,
On
actually.
page 23,
South
actually
exit.
goes through the parking, the public parking, exits through there.
John, anything?
I do. You want to say something first?
So the answer is no. You're going to go the way you think is best for you to get out. And also, if you're dining there from the area, right, you know how to get out. If you want to go south, you're going to go down Clinton, down Hook Out, up Clinton, right? If you're going to go north and school is not in session or whatever, right, you're going to go up Hook Out and up Main Street. Or if you feel that it's not too busy at the tunnel, you're going to go up Station Road. So they're not all going to go up Station Road. And while I have the floor, as you guys deliberate this is not just a pivotal moment for the building. It's really a pivotal moment for the village. There's a lot of things obviously to talk about, but I would encourage you to think about not just getting to a finish line and having this building. This is how we're going to leave this building for the next 100 years. It's been there for 100 years. Would you like to have that brick building for 100 years, or would you like something better? So I'll just get off my high horse.
I mean, as I said, I think I'm excited that there could be a project. But those questions are real about like the directions. I mean, we've had issues with like, we actually had a bridge collapse on one of those roads, right? Like it's super problematic to not direct the traffic in some way. Because I don't think we have the capacity to deal with heavy traffic down Station Road, for example. So I think those are things that we should really like consider in terms of like when you're designing, like maybe how you direct traffic, signage, things like that that can maybe mitigate some of those issues. But I do think they need to be considered. But I don't think they're deal breakers. I think they're manageable things.
What would be the plan for community engagement around the project?
Should I, you want me to speak to you or should I?
I'd be happy to.
Please.
Okay, can I sit? Yeah, I appreciate it. I'm dying to say something.
Go for it. We'll deal with it.
So I've met a number of you, and I hope I come across as somebody who, I'm not the kind of person who thinks I have a great idea and wants to just ram it down everyone's throat. I'm by nature collaborative. I really want to engage with as many people as possible and have it be an open, process and get thoughts. I just want to kind of say a little bit about my family because I really wanted to say that. I'm not like a third generation developer or real estate person. My family was like immigrant restaurant owners who just fell like through any number of fortunate events and hard work into this position where we found ourselves one day buying this building. And it was incredibly surreal, to be honest with you, because when I tell you it's very humble beginnings, it's strange to stand in front of a building like that and say like, wow, we own that. And I'll actually correct myself because we don't own it. We see ourselves as like stewards of something that will live way beyond us, So I hope the community will see that, we've already put a lot of tender love and care into the building. Things that people told me, because again, I'm not a real estate guy. Why are you fixing the facade? Like, get some leasing. Like, it's not a if you build it, they will come scenario in real estate. But we just felt like it was the right thing to do because, to be honest with you, the building was falling apart. Like there's already one dome missing. This is an old picture. This dome is gone. These two right now, if like the roof is a mess, to replace the roof, another dome's going to go, if not both domes, because to support them and to keep the water penetrations, all that stuff, is really expensive. So like everything we're doing in this, I want you to believe from a sincere place, is for the best of the building. And we really think the only way to have this building survive is to try and find a use for it. And sadly, you know, industrial and office use, I mean, we might as well be putting horseshoes on horses. You know, it's just, it's going out. So we're trying to figure out what's the right thing for this thing. Now, listen, in the market, there's always, like, if I had to, like, I say, hey, I'll rent it for whatever, I'll rent it for $10 a foot. Fine. And then we have to grind it out, and then it's not fun, and it's not what's right for the building. So I just want you guys to know that it's coming from a place that, you know, it's, I'm trying to do what's right for the building, for the community. And then, yes, we have to actually pay for it because restoration and this kind of work and adaptive reuse and all this kind of stuff is expensive, you know? So we're trying to find our way there. I want to touch on a lot of the other things too, but I've been told there's a better place and time. But I will say, just compare this, not as if we're putting in something in traffic and stuff like that. There's an existing building. We currently have 200 to 300 employees going in and out twice a day. If we have 100 and something people, which is 30 rooms plus 70, 100 something people who are coming in and checking in and maybe spending 2 or 3 days in a hotel, just from my experience, you don't drive that much. You go into a hotel, especially like a destination with a spa and a restaurant, you kind of just want to stay in there. So all I'll say is this, when you compare traffic and people and stuff like that, just imagine it's not against a blank slate. It's against what's happening today. So just all I'm saying is be fair. Traffic today, not only today, but leased up traffic after this. Height. This, aesthetics, tax. And just compare side by side because it's a binary choice.
I'll speak to public engagement. The question was about.
Sorry. So public engagement, I've already reached out to a lot of people. I'm wanted to reach out to even more. I've sent emails out. I actually love the list that Mike has apparently of the key people to talk to. And if people really would feel strongly about this and want to say something, I'd love to hear it. And I'll advocate for what I think is best, but at the same time, I have to listen to the community as well. And hopefully we'll come to a place where, you know, we find nothing's gonna be perfect. We're never gonna get something that it hits on everything. It's just a question of what's better, A or B.
Carlos has engaged a firm that's done significant public outreach in the county, and hopefully they're going to help get us on track to do that. We specifically did not want to do that before we came here because I will tell you philosophically, I don't believe it's appropriate when you need the government to do something to go to the public first. You have to go to the government officials first and then go out. So
Yeah, I have a question just on the traffic piece, because I think currently the loft has events for like 200.
Yeah.
Just when I was listening to you, Carlos, I was thinking, I don't know that I think of that as creating 200 cars going out of Irvington. Yeah, okay. So that's, I was just trying to visualize, because there are already events there. Yeah.
I feel like I already said too much. I'm gonna sit back down.
I don't think we want to overstay our welcome. So unless people have specific questions, I think we have a sense, appreciate the candor.
Just to have one more question.
Fire, yeah, go ahead.
Just like what might be sort of asked in general, why the hotel housing combination? Like sort of what's it?
Can't speak to that. That was somebody else's concept.
I mean, right now, that's what the pro forma works the best in the limited amount of space that you have. And it's really, really popular to do that. But it's based on the space. You're not getting a lot of keys. Think about it. 72, you're talking 5-star hotel at a minimum, if not higher. So because there's not enough keys, so it's a boutique. That gives the cachet to the residential to attract what they need in terms of dollars per square foot to make it viable. Because Carlos did say something, he's right. It's super expensive to restore. It is not.
Carlos, you're gonna make your money on quality rather than volume. That's gonna reflect in the traffic as well.
To follow up a little on Arlene's point, don't jump on it, David.
I promise, I promise.
What would happen if you stayed within the building, frame that's there now?
If you don't have the two
Building
floors,
outline. If you don't, yeah, I don't know how high up you
the
can.
pro forma won't make enough.
I asked
for
that
So,
residential.
so you can only do the hotel, you can't do any of the residential.
It won't pay to renovate. Can't make it.
Okay.
So it's not that they're putting 2 stories just for the sake of putting. It's what made the building
I understand it.
financially viable. I tried to push them for 1 story. Didn't work.
We have stuff to think about. The door and the lines of communication are open. If you all think of other questions or thoughts, please share them because he's gonna have to figure this out. I think there's likely gonna be some degree of public outreach that follows this because obviously he needs to test the winds as much as you all do. So just know that that's gonna happen. We're gonna try to do it in an intelligent and managed way with a website that people could go to get accurate information and not rely on sources that may not be super accurate. I'm sure we will follow up with Larry and Mary Ann and if we want to do this on the timeline that he has given to us, we've explained to him, we do need to kick off formally quickly in order. So
Have you met Charles Hessler?
we have not, I've only heard about it.
Who, and it may be Charles that you're reaching out to, because I was. Oh, no, we'd hang on to him.
Larry and I have been at this together,
I
literally,
know.
like,
I'm getting out when the getting's good.
he's here a little bit early, what, 87, 86?
No, 97.
92, and I'm here longer, so 89. You're longer.
Pass him around.
Thank you all. We appreciate your
Thank you.
time and your patience with us. Carlos, count them.
Too big to put in our pockets.
I think they're designed.
Either one.
No,
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Ann.
So making a motion to adjourn? Yeah. Yeah, of course.
Ashton has to get, no, he has to be out there.
Fine, I like when you guys are having a conversation like that. I don't think it was.
No, it's very helpful.
Now, he had to be
Right.
out.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
No, I-
So I'm like,
Yes.
let's not simplify it.
Just remember, I heard this kind of iteration. I knew the height was.
I heard this week also, but I was reading because I was gonna say that.
There's an
That's what I was thinking about too. Like, shaping the town and like cultural movement, and I was like, so how do these two things go together? I don't think that's an answer, like, I don't think that's.
Destination.
Yeah, destination,
Right.
yeah.
Very boring,
Like,
but
come to
Good night,
the
folks.
theater and stay.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
I mean, it's, you're having more people come in.
Yeah, I just thought it was really interesting though, how, like.
Yes. It forces that on.
Yeah, I'm making a motion to adjourn. Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
You got like a 4.
Go anywhere.
You got like a 4.
It was quite a.
Well, I mean.
A resounding.
Like I do, semi trucks parked.
What I was gonna say before is I was gonna, everyone might hear about